The Department of Justice is ordering the FBI to address what it calls a disturbing spike in harassment, intimidation, and threats of violence against public school employees. On Monday, Attorney General Merrick Garland instructed federal officials to carry out strategy sessions with law enforcement over the next month. It comes after the National School Boards Association sent an urgent letter to President Biden. They are asking for increased security and an investigation by federal agencies. The group says recent violence and unruly conduct have risen to the level of domestic terrorism and hate crimes. USA Today national education reporter Erin Richards has been covering this story and joins me now with more. Erin, welcome. The Attorney General considers these unruly school board meetings so bad he is asking the FBI to deal with it. As someone who has attended virtually hundreds of hours of these meetings, what have you seen, and do you have a sense of when things started to change?
It's been a lot of incivility. I mean, you've got parents who are accusing teachers of, not doing their jobs, not being safe. For the most part, parents are using school boards as a place to air their concerns and their grievances over a number of, irritations and frustrations over the last year and a half. Many of these fights have come down to whether kids should or should not wear masks in school. Many of the fights have also come down over what many parents believe is critical race theory, the idea that teachers are indoctrinating children with the idea that racism is systematic and, there's sort of a rising tide of sort of liberal indoctrination. That's not true in many cases, but schools have become more diverse, more inclusive. A lot of that gets conflated, and it's just resulted in physical confrontations. And one thing you'll see now that you didn't see it very much in the past is a lot more local law enforcement at these meetings. But the National School Boards Association believes that's not enough. Lots of school board members are getting death threats by email. They're sort of being yelled at in public. And so some of this rise in altercations at school boards, there's some concern that this could escalate. And so asking for the Biden administration's help on this is the next step. And, the Attorney General's response was fairly quick. And I think you're going to see more of these discussions at the local level about how to address this violence and how to tone down some of the rhetoric, restore civility to these public meetings.
Well, so specifically, the National School Boards Association is asking for federal assistance to review whether this conduct could be considered domestic terrorism or hate crimes. Is it clear, Erin, whether or not they'll get that, and how might that actually change things?
Well, what the Attorney General has promised is meetings to be conducted at the local level in every federal judicial district between school boards, education officials, local law enforcement. So I think there's a pretty big commitment there. I think also just the signal from the Attorney General that they're taking these threats seriously, that they move to identify them, to prosecute them where applicable. That's a pretty big signal from the federal government. As you know, in our country, there's a lot of local control over education. And as a matter of fact, parents on the right have been concerned that this is an overstep, that this is weaponizing the Patriot Act, that it's an overstep of the federal government. And so I think you're going to see pushback to this as well. Just the idea that the federal government is getting involved here is something that parents may also take to complaining about.
Right. The Attorney General claims that America's public schools and its education leaders are under an immediate threat. What resources is he mobilizing?
Well, at the moment, he's mobilizing mostly the power of commanding meetings to happen at the local level. Potentially some training around that. It says that in the next 30 days, we'll get more guidance. The National School Boards Association isn't quite clear on exactly what that will look like yet. I still think more of those details have to be worked out.
I mean, Erin, bottom line, what is your sense from attending these meetings virtually? Is there a sense that, civility and a sense of civility can, in fact, be restored? Because it seems once a norm has been violated, it can be very difficult to kind of go back to the way things used to be.
I think that there's a chance. We've seen culture wars in the past play out over things like sex education in schools, the way we teach certain subjects, banning certain books about certain topics that may be controversial. We've seen these play out in the past. What's very different now is so many physical confrontations, windows broken during meetings, people hitting each other or lunging at people in the crowd. That's unusual. We don't usually see that in school board meetings. And so I think that the other thing that may happen is that this may also mobilize even more law enforcement to be at these meetings. We do know that helps sort of maintain decorum. But when it comes to actually addressing the civility in these meetings, I think it has to be discussed. And we're doing our best to get the facts out there about what's happening, but sometimes people's emotions sort of overtake the facts.
Sobering sign of the times. Erin Richards. Erin, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.